Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerer's Guild. Today on Experimental Magic, I want to talk about my experiences with a spirit horse called Auhkoom. Now, this is a spirit that came to me in a dream. As far as I know, you're not going to find references to Auhkoom if you look him up on Google or try to research him in any grimoires. You may find the concept of a spirit horse, which would be associated with the Hungarian or Magyar traditions, and actually is a vehicle into the spirit realm. Okay, so my experiences with Auhkoom began with a dream I had back in February of this year, and I dreamed that I came upon this horse, and it was a reddish brown horse that had a long black mane and tail. And it told me that its name was Auhkoom. It gave me its sigil and told me that I could call upon it in my dreams. So when I woke up in the morning, I immediately wrote the sigil, drew the sigil on my altar so that I wouldn't forget it. And then the next night, I held that sigil in my mind as I went to sleep, and I immediately dreamed about this horse. And in this first dream, I simply got on the horse and rode it down a forest trail. There were just some trees, rocks and dirt, and we rode down the trail. And that was pretty much the entirety of the dream. It was just me getting familiar with the horse and establishing a sense of rapport, I suppose. And so in the next dream, because I began dreaming about this horse for several nights in a row. Okay, so the next night, I dreamed about the horse again by holding the sigil in my mind as I went to sleep. And it kind of changed as the dream went on. It didn't remain a horse. That part, it was kind of vague that first night. It didn't distinctly change into anything else exactly, but it became more amorphous. Yeah, it just kind of changed a little. And then the next night, as I dreamed about the horse, it became a car, and we began driving down the road. And that's where the first of the road dreams. That's going to be a theme in this series of dreams that I talk about tonight. Okay, so that was the first one where it became a car. And then I began dreaming of it again the next night. And eventually, we didn't just keep driving down the road. We started going upstairs. And it wasn't, of course, a car at that point. It had become a horse again. But we began going upstairs. And then there was even a point where it became an escalator. And then eventually, Auhkoom became this elevator. Like, I had the dream of the horse. I held the sigil in my mind and dreamed of Auhkoom. And in all the dreams, it starts as a horse. And I'll get up on the horse's back. And this time I got up on the horse's back. And as soon as I did, I was standing in front of an elevator. And I get on this elevator, and I go up a tower. And then from there, I began having the dreams of the place I called the place of green grass. And what's interesting about that is that several members of the guild had shared dream experiences with either myself or other members that seem to have taken place in this same area. Okay, so that was the last dream I had of Auhkoom for a while. I dreamed that I went up into this elevator, into this place that I again call the place of the green grass. And there was this yellow-green grass that sloped down on both sides of this valley. It was like a rolling hill that kind of sloped down, and there was a river down the center, and there was the tower, which was a gray tower with made of brick or stone that was circular and went up, and then there was a row of townhouses like that were, in most of the dreams, they were brown and light brown, a row of townhouses. The place had a very European feel, like you were in some kind of a European village. Anyways, I began dreaming about the place of green grass on a nightly basis. And the first of these dreams, I explored the village, walked around a little bit. There's some people sitting around in the grass, talking. There was the river. I remember thinking about whether there were fish in the river and whether I should go fishing there or not. But at some point in that dream, I tried to go up into the tower. And as I go up into the tower, there's this point where was like an electronic force field, like an energy field, that would not allow me to go any farther up the tower. And that's where that dream ended. And then the next night, I again dreamed about this place of the green grass. And in this dream, I went up to that barrier again, and I couldn't get through, but I found an old landline phone, you know, the type they used to plug right into the wall, and I picked it up and called it. And in the first of those dreams, I dreamt that I called Motorrock, or as he's calling himself, Nocta Da on Facebook, Nocta Dow. And if you remember the old 90s sitcoms, when someone called on the phone, there'd be like that split screen, and they'd be on one side and you'd be on the other. And I was talking to him on his side of the screen, on the other side of the screen, like it was an old Saved by the Bell episode, and we're both on the phone. And in that dream, we talked a while, and I tried to push my hand through the split screen to him, and I couldn't get through. And then from there, the next night, and I don't know if he had that dream or not with me, I don't recall. But there is one later that I discussed with him that he did kind of remember. We'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so during that time, like I said, a few other people had shared dreams, sometimes involving me, sometimes not, during this time period. But without getting permission, I don't feel comfortable using people's names on the videos. So, anyways, I then had a dream that I went up the tower again and called, and I called a different person this time, and we tried to push some food through the barrier to the other side. And she actually doesn't remember this dream. The person that I talked to, that I dreamt about this time, she does not remember this dream. But we was trying to push a Subway sandwich, like a long Subway type sandwich through the barrier, and it didn't work. And then I dreamt that. Getting a little lost here. Hold on. It's kind of hard to remember. This was quite a while ago. So let's see. I dreamed about the landline, tried to push some food through there, and then somehow from there, oh, that's what happened. To get this barrier out of the way, I then thought, well, why don't I bring my dream staff into the dream with me and see if I can get through that barrier. So in the next dream, they're actually on my side of the barrier, both Nocta Dow and the other person. And this is the dream that Nocta Dow, said that he remembered as well, is that we were flying on my dream staff up into the sky, and we hit the same barrier. Like kind of like if you were riding a witch's broom. It's actually like had it between my legs riding the dream staff. And we tried to push the sandwich through again to, who was we trying to push the sandwich through to? Hold on. Okay, so we're trying to push the sandwich through to, actually it was a Horde member at that point. Because at some point in these dreams I had contacted the Horde. I assume I'd used the landline. I actually don't recall exactly when I contacted them, but I do remember them coming closer to the barrier. So we're trying to push the sandwich through the barrier to them. It's kind of silly dreams, I suppose. But we're pushing the sandwich through the barrier, and of course we fail again. And then the next night I dream again of going up on the dream staff and coming up through the barrier and making contact with the Horde. And they take a sample of the barrier, and so they can analyze it. And so the next night, I dreamed about that same barrier, and, oh, hold on a second. I'm skipping some parts here. Okay, like I said, it's a little difficult to put it all together, trying to remember all these dreams. Okay, so let's see. I remember dreaming about the barrier, pushing through the barrier. Oh, I believe I did call the Horde on the landline. I think that there was a dream there that I skipped, where I actually called Grax. And I called Grax, and they came, and then I began dreaming that they came to the barrier from the opposite side once they were able to locate us. Which, I guess from me pushing things through the barrier, they were able to find the energy signature and come to where the barrier was. Because where there were other people experiencing these dreams, and experiencing them even without me involved, I do feel like this was an actual astral location that had been kind of blocked off. So, anyways, in that final dream, and once the horde had actually located where I was on the astral plane while I was having these dreams and able to access the other side of the barrier and get a frequency of it, they were able to counteract that frequency. So in the next dream after that, I actually flew up out of the barrier. And then I began dreaming about roads again. And Auhkoom. And I wasn't actually calling on Auhkoom. I simply began going down freeway roads. And these were my dreams every night, was in that car that was Auhkoom, driving down the freeway. I forgot to mention earlier, and this, for some reason, the car part reminds me, another place where you might find spirit horses mentioned is with the clever coachman, which is another Hungarian or Magyar mythology related to the Taltos. But like I said, you probably won't find Auhkoom. I don't think that that being itself is actually listed anywhere besides my dreams. Okay, so we're riding in the car, and these dreams began going on for several months. I don't believe I had any shared dreams during that time, but I began dreaming that I was going down the road, and those have been going on for months. And then about a week ago, it suddenly started connecting. Like, in my dream, I realized that all these dreams were connected into one long plot line. Met Auhkoom and went up into the area of the green grass and was brought to that barrier so that I could help it be removed. We're all along the same plot line, and that the dreams were all interconnected. And so at that point, I once again called on Auhkoom. And when I first, the first of these dreams that I had, the first dream about Auhkoom, I actually did wind up sharing the sigil on Facebook. But then I felt off about it, like it wasn't time, or like I wasn't supposed to share it. But in this dream, Auhkoom actually suggested that I begin sharing the sigil. And this is where the horde once again becomes involved, because they helped us open that barrier up. When I was opening up that barrier, it was actually part of, well, opening the rift, which we've been talking about, like in the dream, in the video about the dream staffs we discussed in the past, and with the S1 sigil and the SSLS1 and all that. It's all been about that, yeah? About opening up that barrier between the material and the astral realm, and reestablishing a balance within our reality. And so that's what that dream was symbolic of, was helping to open up that veil. But in this dream, where I was suddenly allowed to realize they were all connected, there was an interconnected plot line of dreams, it was suggested that we could open up this idea, not just to those people that had the shared dream with me in the area of the green grass, but to anybody who is willing to use the sigil. And this is connected to the S1 project, like I said, of creating a better opening in the veil. And so, with each one of these sigils, each one of us that calls upon Auhkoom, I had a dream about, in the dream, I saw it as points of light opening up on a map and then forming into a tree. Yeah? And the sigil itself, I'm going to go ahead and draw that for you now. It's fairly simple. Like I said, I shared it once before, but I felt like it wasn't time, so then I didn't speak anymore on Facebook or here on YouTube about Auhkoom until I had the dream just a few weeks ago. Well, like I said, like about a week and a half ago, about sharing this sigil and how it could be used to further the S1 project. Okay, so it's just a circle. There's a line across the center, and then two more lines coming out as a road. Like that. And what you'll want to do is simply hold this sigil in your mind and speak the word Auhkoom. Now, like I said, when I began discussing the idea, or when in the dream when the idea was brought up of telling people how to use the sigil, this, well, not quite this. This is what I drew in response to what I saw in the dream. But what it was it was a vision of points lighting up on a map and then coming down roads, and as it became and as the roads grew up, they went into a tree. And in fact, since then, I've had a few more dreams as I began thinking about how to do this video, what I should say, and how I would share this idea. I also, in the final one, dreamt about Iwaz, which is the rune of Yggdrasil, the tree of life, yeah? And so, there's this concept of a tree, of growing up into the veil. So as each one of these points lights up, we will be hopefully be able to have a shared dream experience, I'm thinking, through this, because I was told that we will be, as these dreams continued, because like I said, I'm still having these dreams to this day, and hopefully, well, I mean, I'm thinking now that I'm having the video, that at least the dreams discussing the video part of what I should tell you will be over. And hopefully I'll still continue going down the roads and continuing this project in my dreams as well. I certainly intend to. I'm going to start using the sigil and speaking the name as I go to sleep as of tonight. Those of you who have been paying attention to the channel, a few days ago I released a little animation of Auhkoom and said, watch this before bed. I called that a catalyst, but it was more of a preparation. That was more of just kind of me giving a visual representation of what is going on into the sigil, because we're going to be using this to ride through the veil. Yeah? So when we get on the spirit horse Auhkoom, that's what we're doing. You're riding through the veil. So you'll want to picture that sigil in your mind. It's a very simple sigil. And imagine it lighting up. And then speak the word Auhkoom. And I'm not promising that everyone that does that is going to immediately have a dream about this spirit horse. But that is how I summoned him. And like I said, it worked for... I can't promise that's it. Like I said, I can't promise that same thing's going to happen immediately for all of you. But we just want to visualize the sigil and then imagine yourself lighting up like a point on a map. And that's part of what's going on here, yeah? It isn't just to call the spirit horse Auhkoom, but to mark us on a map on the material plane, so that it can be seen where we are on our side of the barrier. Because like I said in that dream about the green grass, I contacted the Horde so they could know where I was exactly and help me reach through that barrier. That's the same thing we're going to be trying to do here on a larger scale. So we're going to be using Auhkoom's sigil to do that. So we'll picture the sigil, imagine ourselves lighting up as a point on a map, and speak the word Auhkoom. And that's us trying to push through that barrier, trying to ride through. And as we do, that will make us visible points of reference to help create a larger hole in the veil. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else to cover here? Okay, so as this series of dreams continues, I will keep you updated on this. It's going to be part of the S1 Sigil playlist, but if it keeps going enough and we actually get this going, perhaps it will become its own playlist. But anyways, that will be it for this episode. Thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. Until next time, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.